You are the sum of the 5 people around you. This is not new, but it is something that you have got to get clear on, because the people around you can either promote you or keep you held back, and you're doing that to yourself. So let's talk about that right now. Check it out. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Positivity Experience. It's your girl, Lori, and it has been hot. It has been a hot one up in her. And I don't know if it's hot where you are, but make sure that you're staying hydrated. It is June, but it is coming in pretty hot here. Up here, it's called the dog days of summer in August, and that's usually when it's like super duper hot. And it looks like we have already got there. So I just look at it as we are closer to fall, which is my most favorite time of the year, always and every day. But yeah, so I can't wait to talk to you about this topic, because this is something that I had to learn very early on in my own healing, but it is something that I still practice today. Okay. And it's the sum of the 5 people around you. What if you don't have 5 people around you? Don't worry. I've got you covered. I'm going to talk about that too, because that's going to go into self-reliance, but we'll get there. Okay. Because it's important that you understand the reasoning that you have a hard time of letting go, which we know all has to do with insecurity, self-esteem. We're going to chat about that too. There's going to be a really good worksheet that's going to force you to kind of go real deep within yourself and really analyze the people around you. So if you are on the Patreon, you will have that this week. And if you want to be on the Patreon, if you want to have a starting place, jump over to Patreon, patreon.com/the positivity experience, or anywhere that you're getting this podcast right now. You can go right in the description and it'll be right there, because this way it gives you a good starting point. I know a lot of times if I listen to things or I watch things, it all sounds beautiful. And then I'm like, I have no idea how to get there. So that's why I create these worksheets for you every week, and we go through them so you understand how to use them. So if that's your jam, hop on over there. So let's talk about this. You have to remember, outside of this just being a thing, the sum of 5 people, which I did not create, right? We just all, especially if you're doing any kind of psychology, you really want to relay this because it's really, really important. And I know that you feel it. Even if you don't understand the sum of 5 people, you feel it, right? Have you ever been in a room? Like you come in a room, you're like, oh my God, this is great. You're coming in for Thanksgiving dinner, okay? Mom is fine, dad is fine, but your sister is in just some kind of mood. And she's always in a mood. She's either calling you and she's complaining. You walk in and it's a problem. You walk in a good mood and it's a problem. And it's always a problem. Not a one-off. This is always she's always pessimist. She's a pessimist, always pessimist. She's always negative. She's a pessimist. When you have those people around you on a regular basis, it is going to prevent you from doing things. It's going to prevent it. So if a person has good habits, you're more inclined to look at yourself and work on promoting positive habits and positive changes. If you're around the negative and the people who are just complaining, and you see a lot of this in groups, and I feel like groups on social media, and I feel like I really want to pause here for a second to talk to you about it. I've talked to you about it multiple times before, but it keeps coming up and people are like, oh, I joined this group and oh my God, it was great to be seen. But I'm not really sure. Everybody's negative. So they're like, well, I mean, they say like, if I take this medicine, it's going to be bad, or, hey, you never have to let this person get all over on you again. It's like, oh my God, that's a confirmation bias. So you're looking for things to confirm that you are seen, which is fine and great and all, but that cannot be the group, right? So if you're in a group on social media because you're getting out of a narcissistic relationship, you're in a grief group, beautiful if in fact it's like, okay, this is what we went through. Now, how are we going to get out of it? Let's not be a victim to this. Okay, different. But the problem is there's not a lot of those groups. Most of the groups are like, yeah, I had a rough relationship with this narcissist. Okay, cool. Other person's like, yeah, me too. I know. And now they've ruined it for us. Oh my God, we just took a turn to the left. So be very careful. Even though we're talking about the sum of 5 people, if you don't have a lot of physical people in your life, you're in touch with these people online. So that one group can be considered a person. Okay. So I just wanted to say that to you, because you might go, yeah, well, I don't really have 5 people around me on a regular basis. Yeah. But are you deep diving into groups? Are you following things on social media that confirms the fact that you were a victim and that you're going to remain there. It doesn't give you any productive, viable ways of improving that. Because if that's the case, that's where you're going to live. And again, you're not going to be able to get positive by being around chronic negativity. So let's talk about that, right? So if the person has positive influences and habits, so think of it like this. If you go to a gym, okay, this is why places like the gym, I have a Peloton, so I do both. I'll go to the gym, I'll stay home, I'll go for a run. But sometimes if I'm really in a I don't feel like it mood, because it doesn't matter how I feel, but if I'm really in a I don't feel like it mood, I need to go around people and be around situations that are promoting what my habits I want to be, right? So if you go to the gym, you're going to find other people working out. Sure, you might chit chat, you might talk. How's the day? How was the weekend? Great. Love the weekend. And whether they want to be there or not, they're there, right? So this goes into every part of your life. So if you want to be, say you want to be neat and tidy and organized, well, you want to be careful around hanging around with everybody who's just constantly negative and uninspired, because guess what? You're going to be uninspired. And listen, I'm not saying you have an off day, right? Every day isn't sunshine and roses. Every day isn't going to be you're at the top of your game, but that's where the 5 people come into play. So when you're in a lower part of your day or of your energy, guess what? The sum of the 5 people who are still doing their best job, they're doing their meditations, they're doing their journals, they're staying hydrated. They are making goals and they're keeping promises to themselves. Well, guess what? Even when you're in a low place, you're going to be more inclined to be like, okay, well, I mean, I guess I can do something, because they're going to promote that. Flip side of that. Oh man, I don't feel like doing it. Yeah, man, I don't either. Yeah, let's not do it. All right. Yeah, of course. Of course. It's easier to be negative when you're in a negative environment. If you're around chronic complainers, okay, whether you realize that you're complaining or not, externally, you're still doing some level of negativity internally. And by the way, you're not going to outrun the universe. You're not that slick. Just because you don't vocalize it does not mean that you've outsmarted the universe. If you're negative, the universe knows you're negative. If you're constantly trying over and over and over again to be like, oh my God, I'm so positive. And then internally, you're just always avoiding things and you're procrastinating life and all of those things. Guess what? The universe isn't going to buy, I'm great and I'm amazing today. Okay. And so this is why you have to be very careful about the people and the things that you absorb and the people you have around you, right? So if somebody is prioritizing, say, a healthier lifestyle, or they're demonstrating balance, they're like, oh my God, I went out. It was great. I had so much fun. I went to Mexican. I had an entire thing of, chips and salsa. And then I got a burrito, and then I got the fried ice cream, and I had 3 margaritas. Cool. But guess what? Then tomorrow they're there and they're just balancing it out. Well, that's great, because then you're not going to sit there and you're not going to have an unhealthy relationship with food, because everybody's like, carbs are bad. They're not bad. They're not bad. Sure. Are they nutritious? Not always, but then you have the complex carbs that are. Get it out of your head that there's this black and white of bad food. Go back to the relationship with food podcast I did. You'll understand. Food isn't bad. Food isn't good. It's some are more nutritious than not. And that's my nutritional background too, right? So you want to be around people who are going to promote a healthy body image, who are going to promote healthy habits, even when they're not in a mood, but they're usually doing it anyway. Or they're going to look to the person around them who's like, okay, well, I'm going to head to the gym, even though you're not going. And then they're like, oh, I mean, okay, wait. And then they say, well, wait, isn't it leg day for you? Yeah, I just don't feel like going. All right, but I'm going, right? So you're going to find that versus the people who are like, yeah, just stay here. So this is why you want to really, and on the Patreon, when we go through the worksheet, it's going to give you a sort of prompts on what to look for and to be very honest with yourself. Because sometimes you aren't honest with yourself. And then you also have to look within yourself. Are you the negative one? Are you the negative Nelly? Are you the one that's always looking for the negative side of things? And then you got to look around you and say, well, is it because I'm around the 5 people who are negative? And that's the whole idea of the sum of 5 people, right? You're more inclined to do positive when you're around positive people. You're more inclined to be active when you're around active people. You're more inclined to be balanced when you're around balanced people because guess what? They're not judging you. They're not judging. They're living their best life and they're hoping that they can bring you along with them. I mean, that's it. Right? So the negative influences, like I said, are bad habits. Are there people who are constantly avoiding things? Avoidance. Oh, you're avoiding it. You're avoiding it. You're avoiding it. Well, guess what? It's going to be really hard for one of you to be like, hey, let's not avoid anymore. Again, everybody's going to have off days, even off season, so to speak. Right? Maybe you're going through a bout of depression, but all the more reason why you need these people around you. If you're in depression, you don't need somebody else around you who's depressed on a regular basis. It's going to become problematic. And this is what you got to be careful for. Are people prioritizing themselves over other people? Guess what? If you're hanging around people pleasing, this is where you see a lineage thing. Oh, my mom did this. My grandmother did this. My great grandmother did this. Yeah, because you're sticking in the same cycle because you're around these same people. And we're going to talk about why that is and the dream of hope and all that stuff, hope of the changing. And so the negative thinking. Are there people who are around you that's constantly complaining about the weather? It's one thing to say, "Ooh, it's hot. I can't wait till the fall." That's not complaining. That's just a fact. But are you always going to complain about this person parked in the spot weird? This person didn't do this. Oh my God, why is the server taking so long? Did you see all the bridge traffic? Listen, none of us like traffic, but that's where you just pop in a podcast like this one while you're driving and just make the best of it. But if people are going to be in a negative mindset, they're going to feed your negative mindset. And now it becomes negative alley. Negative alley. People are walking down the negative and they will go in the opposite direction for you. Okay. I did a podcast on, or was it a podcast? I think it was a podcast on why people don't like you. If not, I think it was a YouTube. It might've been a YouTube, but why people, no, I did a podcast on it. Why people don't like you. If you're constantly in complaining and constantly in a negative mindset and you're constantly in a victim stated mindset, nobody wants to be around you. No one. So imagine this, you're around all these people and it's promoting it. Now you have a confirmation bias like, yeah, they see it. Yeah, they see it, but they're not promoting anything. So this is why you want to take a real good hard look. Are the people around you promoting you in a positive light? It also creates stagnation, right? You can be really stagnant. You can be really stagnant if, in fact, you see that you're doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. That's also the definition of insanity. So like right now, just pause for a second. No, don't pause this. You won't know what I'm talking about, but pause for a minute. Don't think good, bad, or in general. Just who's the closest person around you right now? I don't know, it could be think of it from an adult perspective, adult children, because small kids can be a dream anyway. Say it's an adult child, it's a spouse, it's a teacher, it's a coworker. I don't care. Think of the one person around you right now. It's not about changing them. It's not about trying to fix them. Sometimes you're just going to have to accept it for what it is. If you're at work or if you're at school or something like that, sometimes you just have to understand that's them, not me. So if you're constantly trying to take that on and then you're constantly in defense mode, guess what? You are now the negative person. If you're chronically in defense mode, you become the negative person. You become the toxic one. Just how that is. And we've all been there. And we've all been there more than one time. But are you going to stay there? So think about the one person around you right now and ask yourself, do you feel more inspired? More positive, more like, hey, they harshly told me about myself, so I'm learning about myself. This is good. All right. Do you feel as though it is promoting your growth and your life more than it's not? It's not always going to be on a 10. So get that out of your head. Is it promoting more than it is making you uncomfortable, making you drained? Just first person comes to your mind, ask yourself that question. All right. Now, if you're like, yeah, well, actually, yeah, I mean, for the most part, yeah. And, I feel like I need to tell you this. Not in an attached state. Like, oh my God, they make me feel so happy. That's not what I mean. Are they promoting your growth? Are they displaying healthy lifestyle? Are they protective of their own boundaries? Are they kind of solid within themselves? Do they have self-love? That's what I mean. And if that answer is yes, then man, check. We love that. We want to enhance that. That's what it is that we're looking for. And again, everything isn't going to be on a 10. And sometimes these people are going to fluctuate, but is it more yes than it is no? We want more yes. We want, I feel better when I'm around this person 75% of the time. Amazing. Now, the other side of that is, if you're like, I love them. No, it's not. I didn't ask you if you love them. It isn't about you're loving them. It isn't about you feeling obligated. Go back to last week's podcast. This isn't about feeling obligated to love somebody. It's, are they draining you more than they're not? Let me give you an example of that. I did kind of earlier. Chronic complainers, chronic excuse makers. I'm tired. Yeah, I did that. Or they want to rush the process. Yeah, I did that. I don't know. I think I kind of want something different now. Like, oh, well, can we do more? No, we can't, because you haven't even done this consistently yet. So ask yourself, are these people more draining than not? It's not about love. It's about honesty. And then you want to say, okay, well, I love this person, but is it a deal breaker? So now let's say it's a spouse, and that spouse is just really draining you. Well, you know what? You might have to reevaluate that relationship, because we're going to talk about why you won't hold on to it here in a moment. You're going to have to reevaluate it and say, what's important to me? Am I important enough to me that I want to continue to meet my best and highest goals for myself in life? And are these people promoting it? Because you want to have people who are going to hold you up, not even like physically, or not even like calling you and being codependent, but hold you up because you can look at them, look at their posts, look at their actions and say, wow, that person inspires me. If it doesn't, stop waiting for it to change. Stop waiting for it to change. You cannot and should not change the person who this is about, but you can change the role in which they play in your life. There's a saying, you can't change people, but you can change people. Meaning you can't change their actions, but you can definitely change the role in which they play in your life. Now, if you're insecure, you're in a codependency, if you're in attachment, if you feel some weird loyalty because it's been 25 years since you've been together. Yeah. And guess what? The last 15 years of that has been shitty. It's been bad. So what are you holding on to? This idea, this fear, which is what we're going to talk about. That is called a resistance of letting go. And I'm a big, huge fan of detachment. Not connection is good. Detachment. And understanding that things are largely temporary, but you're holding on to it because there's a resistance that you feel that there is a level of control. Because when you let go of something, you actually have to say, okay, well, I guess I'm going to let this go, and I'm really going to let this go, because your fear is if you let this go, then then there's no chance. Reality check. There may not be. Okay. But you sitting there and holding out hope for this isn't going to change the narrative whatsoever. So if you have an emotional attachment, if you're in any kind of an attachment outside of secure attachment, if you are, feeling like this weird loyalty, like, okay, like I said, like we've been together, there's some emotional bonds there. You're like, oh my God, I love this person. We had such a good time. And the boundaries are not established. Then you know what? You're going to keep sitting there and going, well, yeah, but they've been, and then you start that obligation thing. Go back to last week. Yeah, but they were really there for me during a dark time. Well, good. I love that. I love that for you. I love that for them. But that also doesn't mean that you have to put up with whatever comes your way because they were there for you. We are not going to play that game. We are not going to play that game. So that's great. I love that they were there for you 8 years ago when you went through this, or 6 weeks ago when you went through this. But 95% of the times they are a complete drag and a nightmare. Then it's time for you to make some decisions, because you are the sum of the 5 people around you. You can change that. You get to say, you know what? This person is not promoting my best and highest good. Love them. And you can love somebody on the outer rim, by the way, right? You don't have to completely cut them off, but don't keep them so close to you. Make them the 19th person from you. Let them be the person who's like, oh, did you plant those plants? I did. How are they coming along? Great. Okay. Talk to you later. Bye. Keep it base level. That you're in control of. But if you are afraid of some weird obligation or this emotional bond, but I love this person, do you love yourself more than you love that person? And if the answer to that question is no, then you need to book a session. Get off here right now. Go on my website, click 57 different sessions, and let's work on this now, because that is going to keep you stuck. And then you're going to say, well, why can't I improve? Because you got all these negative people around you. And now guess what's happened? That's now made you a negative person. You're looking at it as a negative person of a negative mindset. You're looking at it as a woe is me. And then you have that fear of loneliness. Yeah, but then I'll be lonely. Just because you have people around you doesn't mean that you're fulfilled. Lonely doesn't mean alone. All right. You can have a spouse, 16 children, 3 businesses, and $8 million in the bank and still feel lonely. That is an inside job. That's an inside job. So if you're thinking, I can't let this person go, and maybe I'm not going to have 5 people around me, maybe I'm going to have 3. That's okay. Maybe you're going to have 1. That's okay too. And maybe right now you don't need anybody but yourself as your 5. Because sometimes you aren't going to be a positive influence for them. You're not going to be in the positive influence for their 5 people because you still have to work on stuff. So sometimes we need to take a step back and be okay with being alone. And I don't mean just living alone. I don't mean just going through life alone. Really sitting, really doing the work and allowing yourself to be in a place to where you can promote that, to where not only will you be able to see what you want from those 5 people, but you can contribute to them too. Because it isn't all about what you can, what they can do for you. It is, are you going to be a positive influence for them? And sometimes you have to have that real harsh approach to self of saying, okay, I need to do my work. Great. Do that work on yourself. Comfort zone. Comfort zone. You're afraid to make a change because even though it's chaotic and even though it's negative and even though blah, 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 and it's been that way all your life, blah, 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 guess what? You're comfortable with it. I didn't say you like it, but you're comfortable with it. You know how to operate in a place of stress and anxiety. Yep, because you've been doing it all your life. You want different, but you're not willing to make the changes to make that difference. Listen, you're going to have to face it. You're going to have to sit through these traumas. You're going to have to allow yourself to say, oh my God, I need to make some changes. What I tell every new client of mine from the jump, the same people who start on your journey may not be on your journey and they may not be healthy for you to even start that journey with you. And that's a fact. So you got to ask yourself, listen, nothing grows in the comfort zone. I don't care how you spin it. I don't care how because the moment you start trying to negotiate with yourself, you're now becoming one of the toxic people. You're the negative one. Yeah, but if you're a yeah, butter, it's going to be a problem. If everything is yeah, but, then guess what? You're not ready. You're not going to make those changes, but you're not going to be a positive role in that person's top 5. You're just going to have to be okay with this because that's how it is. You're analyzing your top 5. Hopefully they're listening to this, analyzing their top 5. And sometimes what you see as positive, they might not. And vice versa. Vice versa. So your comfort zone, whether it be this or anything else in your life, just because it's comfortable doesn't mean it's healthy. Just because you can operate, and I know, I lived it, trust me, living on a high dopamine rush, the more dangerous it was, and I mean dangerous, not like, oh, it's high. No. Putting yourself in harm's way, doing crazy things like, again, selling drugs on the corner, rolling with gangs, doing all of the things that I did because it was familiar. It gave me a hit of importance. It made me happy. But was it good for me? No, but I was used to it. So to break that means I would have to replace some of those people. And I needed to pull back from every human being to work on myself, to say, why am I willing to have all this toxicity and this danger around me? Which, there's still a level of that I'm still comfortable with, if I'm being honest. You pluck me in the middle of a city, there's a shooting 3 blocks away from me, I'm okay. And that's just me being desensitized to it. So it's not even that that's a toxic thing. You're just desensitized to it, right? So when you've seen a lot, you become desensitized. But in the beginning, I just wanted more of the toxicity. I mean, it's just what you do. So when you're looking at the top 5, you say, am I sitting in a comfort zone? Am I afraid of being lonely? Because then you're always going to be in attachment. Are you so there's that. Are you afraid to get out of your comfort zone? Then you're never going to change a person. And you're always going to sit there and you're going to hope for change. I hope it changes. Yeah, it's not going to happen unless somebody wants it to happen. You can sit there and you can try to spin it all you want. You can say, oh, but I see the silver lining. Stop doing that. Stop it right now. Stop doing that. Because your hope for change is going to keep you in a place that you keep negotiating with yourself of why having these people around you is okay. Because you know what? You feel obligated to them. You feel obligated because they were there for you 5 years ago. And since then, it's been a complete nightmare. And they even hold over your head the fact that they were there for you. So now it's a whole other problem. Because now they're holding it over your head like a carrot. Like, I did this for you. I did this for you. And you're like, yeah, you did. Okay. For what? For what? If you feel obligated to be around somebody, that's already a sign that you really need to step back from everybody as best that you can and focus there. And realizing if that's the case, those people around you may not be a positive influence for you. And maybe they are, but you're not even seeing it that way because you can only see your flaws. Again, be okay with being alone. Because this is how you're going to be able to see through a clear filter, right? You don't have that filter on that sees everything, from a cognitive bias where you're like, I see it this way, I see it this way. And then you're holding out hope that then that's where people pleasing comes into play. If I do this, this person will be happy. If this person's happy, then that's really good for me. What? Why? How do we get there? And so it's that guilt, right? Which I already talked about guilt. It's not my jam. It shouldn't be yours either. But yeah, if you feel obligated, if you're afraid to make the change because you're comfortable in it, and then you're trying to say, well, I want to be better, but everything around you is negative, it's really hard. That's the first thing they tell you. It's really hard to heal in a toxic setting. That's why sometimes relationships have to come to an end. Sometimes jobs have to come to an end. Sometimes you do have to get up and move, but not out of avoidance. You got to be careful. There's a thin line. I did that. I lived in LA. I lived in New York. Well, I lived in New York for a while and that was good. But I lived in Florida. I lived in LA. I lived in Arizona. I lived in all these places to try to find this peace. And anywhere I went, there I was. So anywhere you go, there you will be. And this is so damn important for you. So damn important. Because if you're not willing to accept that things are the way they are, then you're always going to look and say, you're going to make excuses for those 5 people around you and say, well, but they went through something. Okay, that was on Monday. Why are we here 6 years later talking about, well, they went through a breakup? Yeah, 2 years ago. Let's get through this. Let's get through this. Not your problem and not yours to fix. The other part of that is low self-esteem. You have low self-esteem. I mean, obviously, if you're staying in this, you have very low self-esteem. You feel like I can't find a better relationship. It's just going to have to be what it is. And well, I mean, at least they give me some attention. Yeah, we all say that who've been in an abused household. Well, negative attention, some attention. So you get used to it. But if you're saying my self-esteem says I can't be alone, or now you start going, the woe is me. Well, woe is me. And I did this and I did that. Well, guess what? You're going to have low self-esteem. In turn, it's going to be very difficult for you to make this change. And there's no scenario where the people around you change and then you change. That's never going to happen, ever. I don't use never and always much, but this case, never. Right? The only way that they're going to change is if you change you in order to accept who and what needs to be around your life. That's literally the only way that you're going to change. You don't just wish for different people. You don't just wish that these people are going to be those 5 people. They're not. Unless they really want to make that change and they really want to do the work, guess what's going to happen? they will not be the person for you, and they're not going to change. And then you're going to change. You got to be willing to understand this. Now, what if you don't have the 5 people around you? What if you are kind of alone? What if you just have the people around you periodically? Well, then you become the sole source of the 5 people around you. Self-reliance and self-discipline. So self-reliance and self-discipline is going to come right into play. You're going to have to inspire yourself, or you call it motivation. Motivation's fake. Don't go there, but it's inspiration. This is where, and honestly, sometimes it's even better. Honestly, it really is, because you don't have the distractions of other people. It's to sit and say, what is it that I can do for me, self-wise, that's going to give me that positive loop? It's a personal development. You can read, you learn, you try new hobbies. That's not just a pastime away. That's psychologically proven. When you learn something new, you gain more confidence. When you're reading, you're absorbing more. Not always self-help. My God, please do not read self-help books before you go to bed. Read murder, read romance, read whatever you want, not self-help. Stop that. But it's reading, it's starting a new hobby, it's creating a part of your confidence for yourself. That's going to help you build it to where when you do start to develop people around you, you're going to gain more quality than quantity. And quality is always more important than quantity. And then what do you do to eventually have those 5 people around you? Well, that's where you're going to have to build your network. Yep, you're going to have to build your network. You go, here's the thing. If you're looking for people who are more like-minded with their health consciousness, then you go to a gym. You go somewhere, you do a virtual group of people who are in the space that you want to be. You want to be more creative. You want to be the person who's going to paint. You want to start painting like Bob Ross. Well, guess what? Then go be where those Bob Ross people are. Do the paint nights, do the virtual painting, go on YouTube, and you'll see that sometimes they'll even create communities, right? Because you'll still need interactions. But right now, that's what you got to build on. But you can't do that until you know what your foundation is. And then you expand. So those 5 people, maybe 5, maybe 2, maybe 6, maybe 12, hopefully not that many. But those are the people who are going to inspire you because you're able to seek that out, which is what I said. Sometimes the not having 5 people is actually not better, but kind of easier. In many ways. I know some of you are like, oh my God, I'm so lonely. Yeah, if you're lonely, then trust me, we got to talk about that immediately because you're alone. Alone and lonely are 2 different things. So those are all the important things because you're able to actually say, I want to do this. I'm going to be around this, right? Again, if you want to live a healthier lifestyle, then guess what you do? You join things, you follow things. Even on social media, be careful of following negativity. You can't follow the negative victim mindset things and then go, I just want to be positive. Again, not ever going to happen. Ever. So if you don't have the 5 people, look within yourself and say, what is it that I want to do in my life? Who do I want to be? And then what can I do to put myself in situations? Listen, you can't start that I have social anxiety and then say, well, I want to have people in my life. That's never going to, those 2 things can't live in the same place. Again, you know I do exposure therapy with my clients. So I'm going to have you go into the belly of the beast. So then once you get through that, now we can get you in a place where you have 5 people. But you can't say, I don't have anybody, and then you're not willing to be in discomfort, right? Because then you're not going to have 5 people because you're not willing to put yourself in a position. So then that goes into a whole different topic to where you got to say, well, why am I kind of self-sabotaging myself by living in the fear and letting the fear lead me instead of just going, okay, well, this is what I want to do. I want to become more social. Well, then you're going to have to go out there. You know, hey, I want to be more worldly. I want to be able to see what the cities have. Well, then go. Yeah, but I'm not sure. Okay, well, then guess what? It's going to be really hard for you to find people. So you got to say what's the most important thing to you, because if it's important to you, you will make it happen. If I gave you a private jet for a week, paid all your bills, and was going to send you to Switzerland for 3 days or 5 days, all expenses paid, all your bills are done, you're not going to lose your job, but you had to get up at 2:00 in the morning, I bet damn Skippy, you would get up at 2:00 in the morning and be ready to go. Why? Because it's important to you. So if it's not important to you, guess what's going to happen? You're not going to do it. So you need to reevaluate what is important to you and who do you want to become? And then you surround yourself with people like that. Now, if you have the 5 people, if they are not promoting your growth and they are not serving your best and highest good, you really want to reevaluate the place and the position in which they hold in your life. And that's a fact. So that's why they say you are the sum of the 5 people around you. If you see people are healthy, you're more than likely going to be more inclined to be in a healthier place. If they're more organized, if they're more like, hey, let's go out and do some fun things. Well, guess what? So are you. If you see them independently living and having a great time, you're more inclined to do that. But the flip side of that is if everybody's in a woe is me and these are the people around you, it's going to be really hard for you to get out. So your job today and every day thereafter is to evaluate those 5 people around you, 18 and above. Evaluate them. I don't care who they are to you. Really, seriously. If the 5 people around you are the negatives, then I do want you to, this is going to be harsh for you, but I do want you to really evaluate yourself. Are you one of the negative people? And then if that's the case, what are you going to do to change it? What kind of steps are you going to take to change that? And that's why it's called the sum of the 5 people around you. So you are the product of the people that you hang with. We're going to jump over here to Patreon. We're going to go through the worksheet. It's going to give you some really good insights on where to really start and to where to really reflect. So keep in mind that you want the best quality people around you and you want to be the best quality of a person that people can have around them. Check it out.